Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 46 of Lent, currently in the midst of Passion Week. I hope you all remain encouraged during this Lent season as we reflect on the love of our Father and his grace towards us. Today's passages are based on Leviticus 16, 1 through 28, and Matthew 24, 1 through 51. Please take the time to pause the video and read these two passages. Today, however, I mainly want to reflect on Leviticus 16 and go through this practice called the Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur, as we might see it in our calendars. What is the Day of Atonement? Essentially, once a year, the Israelites were to deny themselves, which meant fasting and practicing the Sabbath, while the high priest was to complete certain animal sacrifices to make atonement for the sins of the Israelites. The word atonement means to repair wrongs, to reconcile, to repair a relationship. And in the case of the Israelites, it's to cover the debt of their sins, but not necessarily remove the past sins of their lives. It's just paying the debt for it. And so the priest did this by taking the blood of both bulls and goats and sprinkled it on what is called the mercy seat, or the atonement cover. And this is the lid to the Ark of the Covenant. And what was inside the Ark of the Covenant? It was the 10 Commandments, manna, and Aaron's staff. And when you look at these items throughout Israel's history, you see the times in which they disobeyed, rejected, and rebelled against God and his providence for them. The blood that was sprinkled on the mercy seat that covered these items represented God cleansing the sins of the Israelites and atoning for their sins, their disobedience, their rebellion, and their rejection. And the Israelites were to do this every year, again and again, as a lasting ordinance. And so if you take the time and look through all the details about the certain sacrifices, both for the priests and for the people, you can see and understand pretty quickly how Jesus himself was ultimately the truest and most perfect representation of these sacrifices, and the book of Hebrews tells us how. When you start at Hebrews 10, you see how imperfect the Israelite sacrifices were. Starting from Hebrews 10, verse 1, it says, "The law is only a shadow of the good things that are coming, not the realities themselves. For this reason, it can never, by the same sacrifice repeated endlessly year after year, make perfect those who draw near to worship. If it could, would it not have stopped them from being offered? For the worshipers would have been cleansed once for all and would no longer have felt guilty for their sins. But those sacrifices are an annual reminder of sins, because it is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins." So these Israelite sacrifices were imperfect because they had to be repeated, and they did not take away sin. Jesus, being the perfect sacrifice, was the more perfect representation, as we read in Hebrews 9:24. It says, "For Christ did not enter a man-made sanctuary that was only a copy of the true one." He was talking about what the Israelites used during their time. "He entered heaven itself, now to appear for us in God's presence. Nor did he enter heaven to offer himself again and again, the way the high priest enters the most holy place every year with blood that is not his own." If you skip to verse 28, it says, "So Christ was sacrificed once for all to take away the sins of many people, and he will appear a second time, not to bear sin, but to bring salvation to those who are waiting for him." So we now see that Christ's sacrifice was perfect because it only had to be completed once instead of having to be done year after year, and it was able to accomplish what the animal sacrifices of the Israelites couldn't do. It took away sin. And so Jesus' sacrifice not only covered the debt of sin, but it completely takes it away. It washes us pure. It truly cleanses us. Christ's death was the perfect atonement of our sins that was completed once for all, and we as believers should be motivated to respond to that atonement with humility, understanding that we are sinners and that there is nothing that we can offer, sacrifice, or perform that could compare to what Christ has already done for our lives. So as we head into Good Friday and Easter, and in the larger picture, as we wait for Christ to return, and as the second passage for today's devotion, Matthew 24, tells us, we need to be alert and aware as we wait, not forgetting about how perfect Christ's sacrifice was. And we need to have faith that this is the only thing that makes us right before God. Thank you and have a blessed day.